Let's start here. Let's just review a few things, the concepts here. I added some stuff to this document last week. So let's look at this real quick here. All right. So here we have أحوال بناء الأمر, the states of building the command tense. And I made a mistake last week in some of the logic, so that's why, maybe it's good to review this here. So here it's nadif, clean asnanaka. Nadif, clean asnanaka. And what we've done here is these yellow right here is one category of how it's built, and then the green here is another category of how it's built, and then the next slide also has a couple options. But here we go. So nadif here, this word nadif, no matter what comes before it or after it, it's built, meaning it's like you could imagine it. It's like we built this in cement, and it's not going to change no matter what happens, whether this is a question or an answer. Well, it couldn't be a question, but whatever comes, len, hal, whatever words come before it or after it, it's not going to change none of this. There is something in terms of the grammatic, there is something, a rule, and we mentioned this before, there's something called mamnu as-sakinain. Mamnu as-sakinain means that you can't have two sukoons back to back, and so something will give on there. But that's a kind of a different logical thing, and that applies to all words in terms of pronunciation. So anyways, going back to this nadif here in the corner. All right, this nadif, we would say it's fi'l amrun. So I'm classifying it. First I'm classifying it as fi'l, and then what type of fi'l? Amr. And then what is it? It's what type of word is it? It's a mamniun word. It's a built word. It's not going to change. Ala sukun. It's built upon the sukun. And this one below it is also built on the sukun. Irkabna al-hisan. Irkabna fi'l amrun mamniun al-sukun li'tisalihi binun al-niswa. Here, they're saying it ends in this little what they call this thing in Arabic, they call this nun and niswa. So I think I called it so this one, I think last week I mistakenly said this is fil amrun mabniun ala fatha because I was looking at the last word or letter, but it's not like that. What they look at it is like this is the word right here, and then the nun and niswa is attached. But they'll say that the word is built on the sukun. So, from a practical perspective, it doesn't really matter some of these details. It's just this is how that you would be graded if you're taking an Arabic grammatical test. That's what they're going to look for. They're going to look at it in this particular format. I don't know why. I would have just said it's built on fatha if it was me writing it, but it doesn't matter what my opinion is. So here's another one. In hadanna mubakkiran. Wake up early. So here it's fi'l amrun mamniun ala al-fathi bi ittisalihi nun at-tawkid al-thaqila. So we'll cover this later on. This is called the nun at-tawkid al-thaqila. You do another color here. So this guy right here, these guys, the nun with the shadda on top of it, these are referred to as the nun at-tawkid al-thaqila. This is something that you actually is quite common in the Quran, and you only really see this in the Quran. You wouldn't see it in the news, like Al Jazeera and Arabi or most books, stories, or anything like that. Maybe once in a blue moon in a classical text. I've never seen it, but I'm not that well read in classical text anyway. So, but in the Quran, it's very common. This is a Quranic thing, probably for the most part. And this is for emphasis purposes. So what I did was to show the emphasis is I added 2 exclamation marks. That's the best I could do that I could think of off the top of my head in English. And this here, it's udrusna, udrusan, udrusan. This is also the nun at-tawkid, but this is called a nun at-tawkid al-khafifa, the light one. And so I put 1 exclamation mark here. So up top, we have 2 exclamation marks, and at bottom, we have 1. This is what I was doing, but I'm saying, like, I'm not saying that's the, I was just trying to find a way for us to kind of remember it. In both situations, we would say that the fi'l amrun is mabniun ala fatha. So this is common here. Let me change colors. Let's go with dark blue. All right. So in both cases, this is identical. Fi'l amrun mabniun ala fath بنون التوكيد. فعل أمر مبني على الفتح لاتصاله بنون التوكيد. Both of them, that part's the same, but this one is the ثقيلة, which means heavy, and this is the خفيفة, which means light. And then if you look at it again, this is انهضن, right here. If I didn't have this انهضن, it would just be انهض, wake up. Or this one would be udrus, but it's udrusan. It ends with the sukun here. This particular thing, actually, the only one that I can think of off the top of my head, and there may be other examples, is in Surah Yusuf, where it's وَإِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَا يُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَيَكُونَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. And if he doesn't do what I command him to do, this is what the wife of Aziz says. If Yusuf doesn't do what I command him to do, لَا يُسْجَنَنَّ, then he'll be imprisoned. وَلَيَكُونَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. وَلَيَكُونَ, just like here, the noon with the sukun on it, and he will be from the ones who are belittled. There's probably better ways to translate it, but all right. Continuing, أحوال بناء الأمر, states of building the command tense. We have اكتبا, the dars, both of you, write, you, both, your homework. So here, اكتبا is fi'l amrun mabniun ala hadfi harf an-nun. So what's happened is, as you all know, like the verb in general is, oops. Yak to ban dot yak to ban. And then what we do, that means they both wrote. And then what I do here is I go in here and I remove this I remove this noon, and I put like an alif here, and it becomes uktuba, just like you're below it. Now this thing right here, and that's kind of ugly, but this is essentially these 2 words, uktuba. So what they're saying is, in this explanation here, they're saying fi'l amrun mabniun ala hadfi harfi nun. It's the amr tense, the command tense, built ala hadfi harfi nun. Hadfi means like removal. There would have been an alif and a noon if it weren't for that. And what's happened here is what these grammarians are doing is they're looking at these words and the grammar, and they're coming up with logic behind it. Like, what is the logic that's happening behind it? So, for example, if I were sitting in the dark and then I went over there and I was like, I turned on the lights, then the grammarian would say, or the outside observer would say, oh, he turned on the lights in order to see. So they're explaining that the darkness was impairing my vision. And so they're just going to the logic. Like, why would he turn on the lights? He turned on the lights because he couldn't see, because it was dark. His eyes could not observe light, observe anything in the dark, so he went and turned on the light. And what they're doing here is they're like looking at, they're like, okay, uktuba. What happened to uktuba? And they're saying, okay, it's mabniun, it's not going to change uktuba, unlike, for example, the modare, the fi'l modare, with a few exceptions. And so we're calling it mabniun, and then we're saying that they're saying that the way that's mabniun is that the noon has been removed. This is their explanation. لِإِتِصَالِهِ لاتصاله بألف الاثنين. And so with the connection of this alif of the dual alif, or the alif for two, it makes two, so like you both. And here it's similar, uktubu, and then they're saying that they got rid of this noon. That alif right there that they put in here, they just say that it's there. There's to make it easier to distinguish between this word and another word, but that alif has no functionality at all. So فعل أمر مبني على حذف حرف النون. So here it's also the same logic they're using for all three of these. This guy, this one, حذف حرف النون. So this is like, it would have been uktuban, but they're saying no because it's mabniun and amr, and the way it's mabniun is that the noon has been removed. This one would have been uktubun according to them, and then the noon would have been is removed because it's mabniun. It's built upon the removal of the noon, and this one's also built upon the removal of the noon. This is for a female. So what the first one is write for two people, write you both your homework, one of them being male at least. The second one is write you, all of you, your homework, and then this is for three persons or more, one of them being male, and then this one is, you female singular, like one female, write your homework or do your homework. In English, we'd say do your homework, but the word that they use in Arabic is write. All right, and then here's ifsha rabbak. This ifsha, this word originally has yakhsha. I might have put too many squiggly lines there. I think I put too many squiggly lines. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's one too many. Yakhsha. It has this alif maksur. And then what happened is this alif maksur is in ifsha. There's no alif maksur in the fi'l amr. It has been removed. And so the way we would say it is ifsha fi'l amrun mabniun ala hadfi harfin illa min akhiri. That this harf illa, what are the harf illa? Ahruf illa, what are they? Why don't you guys mention them? What are the ahruf illa? What do you guys think?
It's alif, wow, and ya.
Yep, alif, wow, and ya. Very good. And then the alif has two forms. It can be alif or alif maksur. And this alif maksur is kind of in between the alif and ya, because in certain situations it'll be a ya, in certain situations it'll be an alif. Very common in the Quran. So what happened is if the verb ends in one of those letters, like khashya, let's see. Hold on. I think we're good here. All right. Kha, 1, 2. There we go. Khashya. Yeah, so I got to write this down. But here it's khashya. Yeah. So this verb ends in the ya, and so in the fi'l amr, the ya is removed, and it could have been like da'a. Da'a means he called, like we say dua, like make dua. And so what happens is in both of these verbs, to put them in present tense, we find out what the in the command tense, we find out what the present tense is. So this is yad'u, yad. Let me change colors. Yad'u, like that. And this is yakhsha. This other one right here is yakh. 1, 2, there we go. Yeah, I said that right that time. Yeah. Oh, wait, you guys do the dots. See what? I don't really do the dots that much. That's the problem. Yeah. So here it's yakhsha, right? And in order to make these command tense, this becomes ud'u, like this. And this becomes ikhsha. I'm doing that. I can't even spell that. 1, 2, 3. It's just the machine right here. So as we look at this, what's happening is I'm removing this harf illa at the end. That goes out. And then the other thing is I'm changing this ya to an alif. And what they're saying here is that the fi'l amru is mabniun ala hadfi, removal of the harf al-illa min akhirihi, from the end. That's how they're saying it's built. So they're looking at the end and what's changing to the end of the fi'l amr. So that's what's happened in kind of our last verb and now tense. And then
a question.
Yes, sir.
On the examples, the first one, could the oh no, the other page. So the first one in the box, it so I guess this is for all amr, right? It's not like we're looking at a select few. This can be applied to all like command tense verbs, right? Because they all, you know, technically, they're all kind of like technically present tense. They have to be transformed to command, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Very good. So all the gist of this is all the present tense, just like Omar's comment, is they're all going to be mabniun. They're all going to be fi'l amr mabniun. It's either going to be it's going to be either mabni, for example, on these ones. Oh wait, the easiest, you know, it's either going to be mabniun ala sukun, or it's going to be mabniun ala fath because of the nun at-tawkid, baqila or khafifa, or it's going to be mabniun on the hadf of nun, which is these three right here, or it's going to be mabniun on the hadf of the harf al-illa. Those are kind of like 1, 2, 4 possibilities for this thing. It's going to be sukun, fatha, or the hadf harf al-nun, or hadf harf al-illa. And then, and so what you see is, this is how it'll be if you look it up in a grammatical tafsir or something like that, then, or a grammatical anything, this is how they're going to explain it. All the really what we care about, if nothing else, is that it's mamnoon and it doesn't change. That's like the most important thing. And I think last time I gave some homework, so let me look at what I gave. I can't remember what it was. It was something from the text, and then I think we're just going to go to the, so last time it was page 27, exercise 2. So it's this exercise actually right here. All right, so we'll just leave that then, and then let's put that in here. But let's do one more thing here. I want to go back to the original rule about the mabni and stuff, and then just look at, okay, here we go. All right, here we go. I think this has it. And then this on it. No, I didn't. So this one, I thought they had a. No, they didn't have it. I thought there was one where we just kind of said it all. Oh, maybe it is here. Okay, let's just repeat. All right. No, I didn't do it. Oh, okay, here. All right. So here's it is. So here it is. Here's this is the gist of this is like a full summary, which we kind of covered a few weeks ago. This is a full like summary of the different types of words that are mabniun. الحروف كلها مبنيون. All the أحرف. من في هل على the ba like for Bismillah, the la for like lillah, the taht, so ila, min, I think I already said min, wara, all these words, all the ahruf, they're going to be mabniun. They don't change as a result of other words or anything else in the sentence. Like I said, there is an exception kind of to that. That's when you have mamnu sakinain, where you would change the sukun to like either dhamma or kasra. And then we have what? So that's the first one. So this is the first category of everything that's mamniun, is the ahruf. Al-ahruf, al-huruf, kulluha. All of the huruf. وَكَذَلِكَ جَمِيعُ أَفْعَالِ الْمَاضِيَةِ. And then also similarly, all the madi is mabniun. وَجَمِيعُ الْأَفْعَالِ الْأَمْر. And then all of the amr is also mabniun. There are some mudari that are mabniun. There's basically two mudari that are mabniun, and those are the ones. Oh, there's more than that. Maybe they're going to cover that later on. But basically, within the mudari, for the most part, they're mabniun unless it has the tawkid in it, or if it has the nun and niswa in it, specifically for like yadhabna or whatever. I thought maybe I think they're going to cover that later on in the, yeah, they're probably going to cover that later on. So let's just, we're good there. The main idea of all of it, like, right, all of it is that, oh yeah, that's what we're going to cover today. أحوال بناء المضارع. And this is the states of building the mudari. Okay, al-amthila, examples. All right. So these are the mudari situations where it is built. Otherwise, it's going to be mu'rab, meaning that it will change. So here it's لأستمعن النصيحة. I will listen to or pay heed to the advice. So here, this is called the nun at-tawkid, which is popping up again. The nun at-tawkid, it's so for example, in Surah Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ. And when and your Lord has announced لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ, that if you're grateful, لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, then I will increase you. And this noon, لَأَزِيدَنَّ, is we're adding this noon with the double shadda, which is covered in the later lesson. We can add this to different words, and if we do that, then it becomes mabniun, meaning that this mudari now is locked. What comes before it, like whether it's alan or alam or anything else that might come before it or after it, will not change it. The ending of the verb is locked now, or mabniun. And then the same thing, this is also nun at-tawkid. This is the نون التوكيد الثقيلة. لا يذهبن الغلمان. The boy or the boys are going. The boys are going. الغلمان. So, but this is kind of like, it's an emphasis thing. We don't really have this in English. In Arabic, we kind of, in general, we have like a couple of different applications. We have normal, right? And then we have like, I don't know, we call this +1 emphasis, and we call it like +2 emphasis. So this noon right here that we're looking at, this one right here is like a +2. I don't know how else to explain it. We don't really have it in English. The closest thing we maybe have is the exclamation mark. And then this one down here, this is called the نون التوكيد الخفيفة. This is like one level of emphasis. It's just gradients of emphasis. But لا سمعنا النصيحة is like, I'm very, very serious. And maybe it's like very, very. Or something like that, some sort of amplification language. In English, a lot of times they'll take this inna, right? They take the inna and then they'll write in the translations, they'll write barely. Or surely. But this isn't really used in English. Like nobody will do this nobody does this in English. Like it's just not done. If anything, you might see an exclamation mark. Maybe you'll have the word bury or something like that. But even if it's bury or whatever, we have the word bury in English. So I don't know. I was thinking maybe double exclamation mark. Do you have any suggestions? This one's also maybe a double exclamation mark. And it's not yelling. It's just extra emphasis. Extra emphasis. And then here it's ألا تستريحا يا سعيد. No, تستريحا, you are or don't you rest, Saeed. So here it's also the emphasis. So if I said ألا تستريح يا سعيد, ألا تستريح يا سعيد, oh, don't you rest, Saeed, and then ألا تستريحا يا سعيد, it's like, this is, I'm really putting emphasis, like you don't, basically I'm saying you're not resting enough, essentially here. So maybe if I didn't have the noon, it could mean, don't you rest, Saeed, or, and maybe I'm trying to insinuate or imply that you're not resting enough. But right here, when I say ألا تستريحا يا سعيد, don't you rest, Saeed, here, essentially what I'm implying is that you're not resting enough. That's what the idea I'm trying to convey, and this is the wording that they would do to do that. So you can maybe say this is like a single exclamation mark. I don't know how to, it doesn't really exist in English.
Could you use another example and explain it again? I'm still not, I don't know, for some reason I'm not grasping that concept yet.
The second one or all of them? All of it?
Or the, how there's like an exclamation that comes from that.
So this word, this one right here, go right to left. We're going to cover this in another lesson anyway. I guess it's kind of relevant right now, so we'll cover it again later. But all right. So here it's us, Sami'u. It's us, Sami'u. أستمع النصيحة. I don't want to do that. Well, actually, you know what? I can just cut and paste this in. So let's. Actually, yeah, this does work. All right. So here, this is I take heed or listen to advice. Freaking, I do that, but too many things in there. There we go. And let's see. How did that happen? There we go. And let's see. I don't know what happened there. All right. So this one is I pay attention to advice, or I take heed. I pay heed to advice. To the advice in general, or consultation or recommendation. Here, it's a little bit more, and this one's like really more. So maybe what would happen is, maybe for example, Omar, you're giving advice to Dawood. You're like, Dawood, maybe he's, mashallah, inshallah, hopefully he'll be like, Dawood is Kulthum and Omar's son. And so you tell Dawood at like 8 years old, you're like, Dawood, you know, when your grandparents enter the room from outside, I want you to stand up and say, Assalamu alaikum. I'm advised you can do this. And this is very serious, son. So then Dawood says, Astami'anna nasiha. This is like maximum emphasis of like, I'm paying attention to the advice. I'm taking it. This is the maximum that he can emphasize it to using those two words. If he says, Astami'u nasiha, you're like, all right, Dawood, I don't think you get the message here. I need you to really say, you know, I'm advising you here to, when your grandparents come in the room, I want you to stand up and say, Assalamu alaikum, and shake their hand or whatever. Like go up to them, you know, and shake their hand or whatever, right? And then he says, Astaman nasiha. And you're like, yeah, that's good, though, but, you know, this is very important. Don't let, you know, last time they came in the room, you were just kind of playing video games, and you said salam to them on the side. I want you to do, and then he says, Astaman nasiha. You're like, all right, now we got the emphasis. It's just grades of emphasis of I'm paying attention to the advice, and it's something that doesn't exist really in English, where you can just manipulate the same word. All I'm doing here, from here to here, to go from level 1 to level 2, is I'm adding a noon. I'm adding a noon sukun, and I'm changing this dhamma to fatha. Astami'an. I'm only aware off the top of my head, like that example I gave from Surah Yusuf. And then here, astami'anna, and both of these, then this is like the maximum. But it's to let you know that, like, hey, this verb is, I'm putting double emphasis. Oh, you know what else we could do? We could say that this is underlined, this is double underlined. That's what you could do also. That's probably the best way to say this. So if I say, you know, at the masjid, for example, if I said like, hey, you know, no double parking, and or no parking in the fire lane, and then I wanted to emphasize no, right? Let me do this. This is we've covered. We're just straight up covering the other lesson, but it's okay. Okay, let me just pull this up here. I think we found it. I think it is the underline is going to be the best option for us to explain this. not feed the ducks. So at the zoo, say, do not feed the animals, say do not feed the animals, and then you can go like this and maybe put this with underline, or even double underline. That's what's happening here between these emphasizing options.
So can this be done with any type of verb? Is it like Amr, Madi, and Mudari, or is it just for Mudari?
It's only for Mudari.
Only for Mudari. Okay.
It's only for Mudari. Yes, it's only for Mudari. Oh, and Amr. Sorry, it's not for Madi. It's an Amr and Mudari, and that's what had happened right here. This is what happened here. This is what happened right here. Udrusun and udrusanna. That's what happened right there.
Okay.
So it can happen in Mudari or Amr, and it's just, I don't know what, if you come up with a better analogy, you might come up with something better, but this is something like this. Something like this, which doesn't exist in English. It's a way of, it's like escalation, and then I escalated to my boss. My boss didn't do anything. I took it to his boss. That's what's happened here. It's an escalation. We're bumping up the emphasis. Something along those lines. All right. So now, good questions, and then so here these two are of those flavor also. And then here, الطالبات يستمعن النساء يذهبن ألا تستعرفن يا فتاة ألا تصل. So here in all of these are the noon and niswa, the feminine noon of plurality. This one is third person. These ones. And then over here, I don't do that color. This is second person, where I'm speaking to these, or you're speaking to these females. So in these particular situations, once we have all these, hold on, let's just look at all four. We have this type right here, which is the Nun al-Tawkid al-Khafifa. This is the Nun al-Tawkid al-Thaqila. This is Nun al-Niswa lil-Ghaib in the third person. And then this one is Nun al-Niswa al-Mukhataba, which is like that I'm engaging them, or second person. In these, all of these ones, regardless of what comes before and after it, these are mabniyun. Outside of these, I don't know if they might find another exception, but outside of these, there's no exceptions. Everything else in mudari is mu'arab, meaning it'll change. The ending could be a dhamma, it could be a fatha, it could be a kasra, it could be this thing or that thing, or whatever thing might happen to it. The noon might be removed, the noon won't be removed, but all those other mudari situations, it's mu'arab, depending on whether it's marfu', mansub, or majzoom. Something will change at the end of the mudari. But these four in the mudari, they will not change, regardless of what comes before it. So let's just read the letter, the rule. That's what they're going to say here. So al-qaida, the rule. Yubna al-fi'l mudari, the fi'l mudari is built ala al-fathi, it's on the fatha. In ittasal bihi noon at-tawkid, if it has the noon at-tawkid on it. It has two different noon at-tawkid, there's the thaqila and the khafifa. ويبنى على السكون إن اتصلت به نون النسوة. And then if it has a noon al-niswa on it, then it's going to be, so it's going to be mabniya ala fatha, or it's going to be on the sukun if it has the nun niswa. ويُرَى فيما على ذلك. And then everything other than these situations, it's going to be mu'rab, which means it can change or it can morph, whereas the these built ones, they're stuck. They're not changing.
Could you repeat the starting part of this again, please? A little slower. Exactly.
Yeah, no problem. So the yubna, the fi'l mudari is built. Fi'l mudari, the present tense, ala fath. It's not built on the fath if it's connected with the noon at-tawkid. So it's all the ala fath and noon at-tawkid. Oh man, it's just coloring all and it's gone. All right, one. So it's going to be in the fath if it's noon at-tawkid. And then it will be, it's built on the sukun if it has the nun niswa on it. Other than that, and then what they're saying over here is, other than that, وَيُعْرَبْ فِيمَا عَلَى ذَلِكَ. And then other than what's been described above, it's going to be yu'rab. It's going to be a mu'rab verb. And the mu'rab means the ending changes. So let's just look at one of these things over here. Conjugation. Have every possible thing, but all right. Well, this will serve its purpose for what we're trying to do here. So here, if we look at the if we look at here, here it's yaktubu. Huwa yaktubu. Here it's yaktuba. Right? And so the difference here is this change, the dhamma and fatha, right? Remember, you guys did this exercise a ton of times. And then if you look here, taktuba and taktuban, it's just a different color there. This also changed. So everything in the mudari, what they're saying, it changes. Even here, aktuba versus aktubu. Or I wish I had the color orange, but I don't have that as an option. Then we have naktuba. I'm naktubu and naktuba. We have taktubun, taktubu. You see it changed. All of them change, but if you look here, a few don't change. Which ones don't change? The ones that have nun and niswa. The nun and niswa is this one, taktubna and yaktubna. Where's yaktubna? Taktubna, taktubun, you, taktubu, taktubin, taktub, taktubu, yaktubu, taktubu, taktubu, taktub. Where am I missing? You and you. Oh, okay. I think I have to scroll further right. Hold on. Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah, just scroll further right. All right. So here we go. So here, these two right here. Look. These ones, they don't change. Okay? Right? Everything else, all these other ones. Let me pick a different color. Those pink ones, the ending does not change. All these ones in green, I'm going to highlight. Every last one of these changes. I'm just highlighting the change. Oops. Okay, this one right here. It's really this. You see, right? You've already done this. You've done this in all your homeworks. You did a bunch of these. All these things, these change. And you may have noticed it even when you were doing the homeworks back in the days. You're like, you know what? Everything changes except for those ones in pink.
What about yaktubani and taktubani?
Look, they all changed also. The noons are gone. The pink ones, they stay the same. That's the noon and niswa for plurality. And that's for either second person or third person. Everything else, all the green has changed between the top and the bottom. The green has changed. The pink does not change. And that's the point that they're making on the mudari. This is category number 1, where they call it the noon and niswa. And then the, or whatever, I don't know if it's category 1 or 2, but I can't remember. And the second category, which was the thing that we talked about today, that whole emphasis thing, the noon and tawkid. So they're saying, that's what they're saying here, is that it's maybe, if it has the noon at tawkid on there, this is number 1, fathi in noon at tawkid, or it's going to be mabniun ala sukun ba'tisabihi noon an-niswa, which is what we just looked at, that whole pink green thing I looked at on the other slide or other page. And then so we all got team out of that. And then other than that, other things, these two things above, the mudari will morph. It changes depending on other words in the sentence. The mabniun words do not change no matter what attaches to them. Like I said, there's kind of a little bit of an exception there, but it has to do, that's a pronunciation exception. That's not really a grammatical thing. That's where you can't have 2 sukuns back to back. It's called mamnoon iltigha sakinain. And then what I mentioned here, or we're looking at here, is that for these mabniun ones, those particular ones, these guys don't change either from mudari. Everything else in mudari will change. The mudari is going to change, which we saw over here. That's all they're trying to get across all this. Maybe it's a complicated way of doing it, but they're just analyzing what happened here. And so the grammarians are like, okay, except for these ones right here, all the mudari will change. These ones, and also the noon and tawkid thing that I talked about, the emphasis thing, those situations with mudari, they will not change regardless of whatever happens into it. Everything else will change. And so they mention this in the grammar. They'll say this, they'll say, mamniun. And then what is the mamniun on? It's going to be mamniun on sukun. This is for Amr. And now for mudari, we have some of that for mudari as well. So what we can do is, this is what I'll do. Before next week, inshallah, I'll add something like this for mudari to this PowerPoint, and then you can, we'll discuss it next week, and then we'll go on to the next section. I have some homework in there too, just one of these. You don't have to sweat it too much. All you got to really remember is, like, 20 years from now or 30 years from now, if nothing else, remember that there's 2 types of words, marab and mamniun. And this is what mamniun means, this is what mudari means. And then whether you can recall them off the top of your head or not, it doesn't really matter. But in a reference text, you should be able to quickly go back through here and be like, okay, this is what's happening. That's the main concept, though. And then al-i'rab al-mahal, this should be good. Next chapter, I think we're gonna have a good time on the next one, inshallah. All right, any other questions or comments before we adjourn for the day? I think that's what we're going to probably use homework number 1 for the.
Yeah, I think the tough part is to identify the form. I mean, since you know the background or stuff, I guess it's easy for you to identify, but if you don't know the meaning or the, especially in these, the one that you're showing right now.
This one's?
No, just the previous conjugation thing that you have, the table. Yeah, once you see the word, I guess it you should be able to identify if that has the noon added to it. I mean,
So the noon
it's
thing,
yeah.
that's a good point. And like I said, the noon thing, that's actually covered in a future lesson. It's just popping up now because it's relevant to grammar.
Right, yeah.
Maybe it would have been better if they did that in hindsight. If we either jumped ahead in the thing and came back and covered what this whole noon thing was and then discussed it, but they're trying to cover the whole Mu'rab and Mabniya together in like back-to-back chapters. And
Yeah.
so that's something new. But outside of that, everything else you should, in this table, we've already covered, in this table here, we've covered this thing. You've done this homework and you've done all of it collectively many times. You've done all of this up to here. You've done the command, you've done the fi'l mudari majzoom, the fi'l mudari marfu' mansub, and the fi'l mudari mansub. And you've done, actually, this is what it is here. This is madi, right? You've done madi. This is mudari marfu'. You've done all of these. And then you've done the mudari mansub, mudari majzoom. And then the last one is the Amr. And I might have highlighted them incorrectly, but you've done these several times, right? And so, yeah, and now we're just saying like, okay, they're saying that if it is, and you kind of already knew this, maybe you didn't know, but you didn't think about it, but they're just straight up calling it outright. Now they're just calling it outright. These ones are mabniun, they're not going to change. And then these ones will change.
So previously we learned each verb, the three categories, the present, past, and command tense. And then now for each of that, we are going in detail of if this word changes or not. So the main issue would be with Mudare and Amr, right? Madi would be easier.
Wait, can you say that again?
No. So all fi'l Madi would not change.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so our main categorization for the next level would be mainly for Amr and Mudare. So we have, when we see a verb, a Mudare or Amr, we need to identify if that is a Mu'rab or a Mubni.
Yes.
Right?
And that's exactly correct. And then you're right. That's the logic. And this table itself, the fact that there's only one section for Maldi, that tells us that because there's only one section for Maldi and we don't have variations from it, that's how we kind of know it's Mamniun. Because if it was Mu'rab, then there would be other variations of it, and we'd have to learn the other essence, right?
Yep, right.
And so we don't. And so the Mudari, we have to learn these variations. But in these three variations of it, these things don't change. The plural feminine do not change in these three variations. It's the same here, it's the same here, and it's the same down here. It's the same thing. And that's why they're saying, okay, the Mudari, it changes except for those situations, and that Nuna Tawkid, which we talked about. And then they're also saying that, see, we only have one area for the Amr, the command, and that's the same thing. It's that we only have one area for the command because there's no variations of it. Only the Mudari has variations, excluding that Nuna Niswa and the Nuna Tawkid. So that's the whole logic behind it, and we don't have to make it too complicated, but that's kind of how.
Yeah, just trying to figure out, I guess, like a stepwise of how you recognize.
Yeah. It's not a big deal. You guys get it. It's just we don't have to flip out about it or anything. But the way they explain it, they're just calling it out. That's all that's happening here. It's like, hey, there's Mabniun words and the Mu'rab words. That's all this is. We don't have to, this isn't going to make a big difference on our interpretation of language. So, all right, then I think we can shut down here, and then we'll continue for next week, inshallah, on the next chapter. We'll go through some more of this, review it one more time, and then we'll go to the next chapter, inshallah.
All right, Jazakallah khair.
Okay, so, assalamu alaikum, everybody.
All right.